Welcome to this channel. Today's story will show you why imperfection isn't something to hide, but something sacred to embrace. Rooted in ancient Indian wisdom, this tale will change the way you see your flaws forever. In the ancient kingdom of Vadiha, surrounded by rivers and red hills, there lived a young sculptor named Anaya. She was known across the land for her breathtaking art. Her statues seemed to breathe with life, and kings offered her gold just to own one. But Anaya carried a secret she never shared with anyone. She had been born with a twisted left hand. She always covered it with long robes, never sculpted in public, and refused to take on students. She believed that no one could respect a sculptor whose own hands were flawed. In a world that worshipped perfection, Anaya feared her imperfection would be her undoing. One day, the royal sage announced the construction of a grand temple for goddess Saraswati, the goddess of wisdom and creativity. Sculptors from across the kingdom were invited to create a statue for the temple's entrance. The chosen sculpture would be worshipped for generations to come. Anaya was torn. Her heart longed to answer the call, but her mind was filled with doubt. Still, something inside her whispered to try. And so, in the quiet of her home, she began to carve. Days turned into nights as she poured her soul into the marble. Her twisted hand moved slowly, sometimes shakily, but with purpose. Every line she carved was filled with emotion, her fear, her hope, and her silent prayers. As the sculpture neared completion, a small slip caused the goddess's lip to curve ever so slightly. It was a tiny imperfection, barely visible, but to Anaya, it felt like failure. She wept in silence, believing she had ruined the work. Yet, with trembling hands and a heavy heart, she carried her statue to the temple courtyard for judgment. All around her stood flawless idols, smooth, symmetrical, shining. Her own felt quiet and humble in comparison. When the king and the sage arrived, they walked past the other statues without a word. But when they reached Anaya's, they stopped. They stared at the goddess's face, at that faintly crooked smile. After a long silence, the sage spoke. "This is the one." Gasps filled the courtyard. One sculptor stepped forward in protest and said, "But this statue is not perfect." The sage turned to him and replied gently, "Perfection may please the eye, but it does not touch the soul. This smile, it feels real. It feels alive." This statue was not made by a flawless hand. It was shaped by truth. Anaya stepped forward, revealing her hand for the first time. The king bowed his head and said softly, "The twisted hand that carved a goddess is a sacred hand." That day, Anaya stopped hiding. She embraced her gift fully, not in spite of her flaw, but because of it. She taught others that what we see as weakness can be the very thing that brings life to our work. Later, the sage shared a quiet truth with her. He said, even Krishna had flaws in form. Even Arjuna was filled with doubt. But it was their imperfections that made their stories eternal. In every cracked voice, in every trembling hand, the divine finds its home. So if you carry something you've been ashamed of, something you've hidden for too long, remember this. The soul does not seek perfection. It seeks what is real. And sometimes, the smallest flaw is the doorway through which your greatest gift enters the world. Thank you for watching. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to hear that their flaws are not failures, but gifts waiting to be understood.